Welcome to Bernette's Bizarre But True Tales. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Before you decide this is just another lost treasure story, I want you to picture the evidence the way I saw it. A fortune removed in wartime, a trail that breaks apart, a skeleton in the bush, and a missing man whose body came back with a bullet wound. I first came across this Kruger Millions as a folklore, but the deeper I looked, the more it felt like a true crime file someone had never managed to close. Here is what I knew. The Kruger Millions legend tells of a massive fortune in gold bullion and minted Kruger pounds, wealth said to have been moved in June 1900 as British forces closed in on Pretoria during the Second Boer War. President Paul Kruger is said to have ordered the treasure removed from the Pretoria Mint to keep it from the advancing British Army. Some accounts say it traveled by rail. Some accounts say the train carrying the treasure vanished. Others pull the story back into ledgers, wartime accounts, shipping routes, and European banks. But the legend insists on a darker possibility. That part of it was hidden on the South African soil, buried so well that generations of searchers have kept returning to the same haunted landscape. That is where this stops being a simple missing money story. Because in the file, there is a skeleton in the wealth, bags of gold, diamonds in the dust, a missing man, a body with a bullet wound, and one name that kept pulling me back, Philip Swartz. I'm opening the Kruger Millions case as a true crime horror, not because I can prove a curse, but because every time I follow the evidence, something colder than gold is waiting at the end of the trail. As you listen, keep one question in mind. Was the treasure the motive, or the myth, or the trap? Before we get into the evidence, tell me your first instinct. Do you believe lost treasure stories usually hide truth, exaggeration, or something far more dangerous? Hi all, and welcome back. I'm Bernette, and this is Bernette's Bizarre But True Tales. If you like strange history, true crime, and stories that leave one detail scratching the back of your mind, settle in. Tonight, I'm taking you through the Kruger Millions the way I found it. One report, one contradiction, one witness, one corpse, and one unanswered question at a time. Before we begin, a quick note. Tonight's tale blends documented history with long-standing legend. When the records are clear, I'll tell you. When the trail becomes fog, I'll tell you that too. But keep the lights low, and if you hear footsteps where no one is walking, do not answer them. When I picture Pretoria in June 1900, I do not see treasure first. I see panic. I see officials moving too quickly. I see men watching the doors. British forces are closing in, and inside the city, heavy boxes are being moved under pressure. Not souvenirs, not family values, gold. The kind of gold that can fund a war, buy silence, and make a man disappear. The records say President Paul Kruger and the government of the Afrikaners Republic had already fled the capital, but the legend gives Kruger's order a sharper edge. Move the bullion, move the minted Kruger pounds, and keep that fortune out of British hands. Instructions were given to remove the gold from the Mint and National Bank before the British arrived. On June 4th, the gold was reportedly collected, weighed, recorded, and prepared for transport to Pretoria Station. That is the official shape of the story. It sounds orderly, almost clean, but nothing about a collapsing capital in wartime is clean. And if the name Kruger sounds familiar, there is a reason. Decades later, South Africa would mint the Krugerrand, a gold bullion coin whose name combines Kruger, after President Paul Kruger, with Rand, the South African currency. First issued in 1967 to market South Africa gold, the Krugerrand carries Kruger's portrait into the modern gold market. So when I say Kruger pounds, Kruger gold, and the Kruger Millions, I am talking about more than a rumor. I am talking about a name stamped into South Africa's gold history. And when you hear the name Krugerrand, do you think of a respected gold coin? Or does knowing its connection to Paul Kruger make the Kruger Millions legend feel even more mysterious? I keep coming back to those boxes though. Heavy, plain, watched by men who understood that if Pretoria fell, the bullion and Kruger pounds might become a trophy, evidence, or leverage. Witnesses later spoke of wooden cases carried from Church Square to the station. The train left on the Delagoa Bay Railway, one of the last arteries still open to the Boer government. And this is where the legend tightens its grip. The train carrying the treasure seems to slip out of sight, and after that certainly begins to thin. By the time the British entered Pretoria, the mint was empty, and that emptiness became the beginning of a question that still refuses to die. Where did all the gold go? That vanished train version is what makes the story so hard to kill. A train is supposed to leave tracks. It has stations, schedules, witnesses, but in the Kruger Millions legend, the treasure train becomes something stranger, a moving vault that enters the fog of war and comes out as a century-long obsession. Imagine lanterns swing in the dark, wooden crates slide across the platform, a gloved hand checks a pocket watch. You can almost hear an official say, "Quickly, no shouting. If the British reach the station before dawn, there must be nothing left for them to count." And the rail workers say, "But these boxes are too heavy." And the official would respond, "Then do not ask what's inside." Well, in my mind, this is the moment the legend is born. Not when the gold is counted, not when it leaves the mint. Here, on a dark platform, with men pretending not to be afraid, and a train waiting like it already knows it will become a ghost. And you can almost hear the official say, "Once this train leaves, no one speaks of the route, no one speaks of the cargo, and if anyone asks, you saw nothing but smoke." And then the train moves, slowly at first, wheels grinding, steam swallowing the platform, the lanterns blur, the track carries the treasure east into the dark, and when the smoke clears, Pretoria is left with an empty mint, a city about to fall, and a story that will spend the next century refusing to stay dead. Some records suggest the gold was moved onward through Mozambique and eventually overseas. Some historians argue that the so-called missing millions were never buried at all, but accounted for through wartime payments, supplies, and foreign banking channels. I understand that argument. It's sober, it is probably safer, but then I look at the gaps and the stories and the men who went searching and the body that turned up in the bush, and I cannot quite close the file. And the gap was big enough for treasure hunters to step into. If you were investigating this, would you follow the official records first, Or would you start with the places treasure hunters kept returning to? By morning, the story had already begun to change shape. A man who saw the train became a man who saw wagons. Wagons became ox carts. Ox carts became a secret convoy. And the convoy, depending on who told the tale, either crossed the border, vanished into the mountains, or stopped in the Lowveld just long enough for men with spades to bury a country's wealth beneath the red earth. And this is how true crime legends grow. They do not arrive complete. They collect details from fear, grief, greed, and bad memory. They dress themselves in half-remembered facts until years later, I am left staring at the same problem over and over. Where does the racket end? And where does the lie begin? And in this case, the facts were strange enough on their own. The British entered Pretoria on the 5th of June 1900 and found the mint empty. The girl was going east along the Delagoa Bay Railway toward Middelburg and then toward Marquis, now Mantuto. Some accounts describe cases of gold being handled through officials, merchants, and wartime supply networks. Others insist the numbers never quite settled, leaving behind the glittering shape of a missing fortune. As I followed the story, the Kruger Millions stopped looking like missing money and started looking like a map of obsession. Some searchers pointed to the Lowveld, others to mountains, river crossings, old railway lines, caves, and lonely stretches of bush between Pretoria and Mozambique. Every theory had a direction. Every direction had someone willing to walk it. I have never liked stories that make the landscape sound innocent. The Lowveld, in this case, does not feel innocent. The acacia trees hook at the sky like blackened fingers. The grass turns copper. The earth is red enough to look stained. At night, every sound becomes a possible witness. Insects clicking, branches scraping, something unseen breathing just beyond the firelight. Out there, darkness does not fall. It gathers. It pools between the trees. It settles into old holes in the ground. And if a shovel has ever opened one of those holes and then been abandoned beside it, the night seems to remember. Treasure hunters had came with shovels, metal detectors, old stories, and dangerous hope. They searched around the Blythe River and the wider Lowveld. Some went home empty-handed. Some claimed they were close, and some stories took a darker turn. In every true crime case, there is a point where the story stops being about motive and starts being about opportunity. In this one, that point has a name, Van Niekerk. And once Van Niekerk enters the story, this stops being a hunt for gold. It becomes a countdown to a gunshot. In January 1904, I find a story under a title that sounds like it belongs on a yellowing police file, The Mystery of the Veldt. It involves Swartz, Pretoria's, and a supposed discovery made during the war. The skeleton of a man in the bush, his arms around bags of gold nuggets and diamonds. A dead man holding treasure. The detail is either the center of the case or the perfect lie. Now let's pause right there. A skeleton in the bush is already a nightmare, but a skeleton guarding treasure? That is the sort of image that crawls under the skin and stays there. It asks questions the moment you hear it. Who was the dead man? Why was he alone? Why were the bags still there? And if the treasure was real, Why had no one come back for it like before Swartz? Imagine finding it by firelight, the white curve of burn under a blanket of leaves, empty eye sockets turned towards the stars, and beside it, the thing every living man had come to want, gold, waiting with the dead. When I read that detail, I had to stop. In a ghost story, treasure is found by accident. In a murder case, accidental discoveries make me suspicious. Who benefits from the skeleton? Who benefits from the diamonds? Who benefits from telling everyone that the girl was real but just out of reach? What do you think? Was the skeleton story a real discovery, a desperate rumor, or a carefully placed lie? According to the report, Swartz and Pretoria had become separated from General Ben Viljoen's commando near the Portuguese border. During their journey, Swartz allegedly found the skeleton and the treasure. Pretoria took some diamonds and buried the rest. Later, Pretoria was killed. Swartz was wounded and taken prisoner, and the secret seemed to pass into silence. But there was another current running under the case: personal grievances. One report claimed Van Niekerk had married the woman to whom Swartz had once been betrothed, while Swartz was a prisoner of war. If that detail is true, then the treasure trail was not the only dangerous thing traveling with the men into the bush. Old jealousy may have walked beside them too. That is the moment the case changes for me. Treasure is no longer just a thing men are hunting. It becomes a story someone can use, a story that can lure men away from camp, a story that can explain a disappearance, a story that can cover a gunshot. After returning from captivity, Swartz set out to recover the treasure. A party was formed. Among them was Van Niekerk. They traveled into the bush, chasing a fortune that may have existed, may have been exaggerated, or may have been the bait in a deadly trap. Then during the journey, Swartz and Van Niekerk went off to collect firewood. Swartz claimed he shot at a buck, wounding it, and followed it. But in stories like this, there is always a moment when the trees close behind two men, and only one comes back. And this is the part I replay in my mind. The remaining men wait at camp. The bush presses in. Swartz vanishes, then reappears, and starving and exhausted, he tells them he went to the treasure, took diamonds, lost them, crossed the river, and somehow survived. I try to read that as a survival account, but it sounds too much like a confession, trying not to become one. But Van Niekerk did not return, not at dusk, not at midnight, not when the fire burnt low, and every man began listening for footsteps in the blackness. Van Niekerk's wife demanded answers. I keep thinking about her part in this story. She is not chasing girl. She is chasing a man who did not come home. Searches were made, and in the thick bush a body was found. Reports said it bore a bullet wound to the head. The veldt had kept him for a while, hidden in the heat and leaves. Before giving him back as evidence, Swartz was arrested for murder. At trial, the story widened again. Witnesses spoke of diamonds, hunting parties, strange disappearances, and competing explanations. The prosecution painted Swartz as a man who had led Van Niekerk into isolation and shot him. The defense suggested the veldt itself had killed him, even raising the possibility of lions, and somewhere between those claims stood the thing everyone wanted, but no one could hold up in court. That's the treasure. So I asked it like an investigator, not a storyteller. Was Van Niekerk killed for treasure? Was the skeleton story bait? Did Swartz invent the impossible to make the ordinary crime harder to see? Or was the whole case born from war, hunger, jealousy, and greed colliding in a place where no one could hear the shot clearly? That is the terrible power of the Kruger Millions. The closer people get to the treasure, the less solid the ground becomes. Stories contradict themselves, and sometimes the bush seems to decide who is allowed to leave. I'd like to hear your theory in the comments. If a treasure legend leads to a body, does that make the treasure more believable or the story more suspicious? But the strangest part is not that one man vanished, it is that after the body was found and the trial faded, the story did not die. It spread, and the next people who followed it may have been chasing more than treasure. I want to show you what happens when a murder case becomes a map, and why the people who kept digging long after the witnesses were dead may have been walking into the same trap. After the trial stories faded, the obsession did not. That is what unsettles me. Over the decades, the Kruger Millions have attracted believers and skeptics in every measure. Some searchers chased railway routes, some studied military records, others followed family stories passed down like evidence. A grandfather who saw boxes loaded at night, an uncle who heard of coins buried near a river, a guide who knew of strange holes in the earth. There have been discoveries that stirred excitement: Kruger-era coins appearing in vaults, stories of Swiss holdings, auction sacks of Earl pounds, but none had conclusively proved that a buried South African hoard still lies beneath the Lowveld. One of the most tempting clues came from stories of coins and gold surfacing far from the bush. Earl Kruger-era pieces have turned up in collections and vaults, and each appearance briefly wakes the legend. But coins can travel in many ways, through trade, banking, inheritance, collecting, and war. A coin is proof that gold exists. It is not proof that a hoard still sleeps under a thorn tree. My imagination sometimes gets away from me. I imagine being the person who hears the metal detector sing in that hot silence. I kneel down. I scrape away the dust. A round edge appears. For 1 second, my breath stops, because in that second, history is not in a museum. It is in my hand. And then comes the second question. If this is real, who else knows I found it? That second is what keeps the searchers alive. Not certainty, not evidence strong enough to close the case, just possibilities. Possibility is a powerful fuel. It makes people ignore heat, snakes, distant permits, disappointment, and common sense. It makes them look at every depression in the ground as if the earth itself is smiling with a mouthful of dirt. And yet, the legend survives because it offers something irresistible, the possibility that official history missed something, that somewhere just beyond the next hill, beneath the roots of a thorn tree, a box waits. The part I find most chilling is not the girl. It is what the girl lets people become. To the government, it is funding. To an army, evidence. To a historian, a ledger problem. To a treasure hunter, a map. To Swartz and Van Niekerk, perhaps it was motive. And in a true crime horror story, motive is never buried as deeply as people hope. This is what makes the case so dangerous for anyone watching it from the outside. A legend does not need to be fully true to change people's behavior. It only needs enough truth to make the next person believe they are different from everyone who failed before them. I do not know if the Kruger Millions are cursed. I do know obsession behaves like one. It starts small, one more clue, one more document, one more local rumor, then it becomes one more hill, one more hurl, one more day in the heat and silence, and eventually, when the sun drops, it becomes one more sound behind you. The Kruger Millions sit at the perfect crossroads of greed and grief. They belong to a defeated republic, a brutal war, a president in flight, officials under pressure, prisoners returning home, and men trying to rebuild lives on ground that still remembered the gunfire. In that kind of aftermath, a buried treasure is not just money. It is justice, revenge, rescue, proof that the past still owes someone something. That may be why the legend refuses to die. It is not only about finding gold, it is about refusing to accept that chaos won. If the gold is still out there, then the story is not finished. If the box is still buried, then history has left a door open. And that is why the final question is not only where the gold went, it is whether the story itself became the thing that people should have feared. Be honest, if you found one old coin in the Lowveld, would you report it, keep digging, or leave immediately? So, I come back to the central question in my notes. Did the Kruger Millions really exist? My safest answer is this: gold was removed. That much is rooted in history. Whether a secret hoard was buried in South African soil remains unproven. The documentary trail points towards movement, accounting, and overseas transfers. The folklore points towards hidden boxes, murdered men, and treasure waiting in the bush. I cannot convict a legend, but I also cannot ignore the body. Maybe the treasure was never buried. Maybe it was spent, shipped, divided, and documented in places less romantic than caves and riverbeds. Or maybe, just maybe, a small part slipped away from the record, carried by men who knew they might not live long enough to return. If I ever found myself in the Lowveld at sunset and I saw a hollow in the red earth, I would not be quick to call it an animal burrow. I would look once, I would look twice, then I would stop looking. Because if the hole looked freshly open and there were no footprints around it, I would have to ask a question no investigator wants to ask in the dark. Am I looking at evidence or am I being led? And if I follow it, would I be the one solving the case or the next name added to it? And if the treasure is not there, if the ledgers are right and the coins cross oceans rather than rivers, then the haunting becomes even stranger, because it means the real buried thing is not gold at all. It is the human need to believe that somewhere beneath all the official answers, there is still a secret waiting to be uncovered. If this case pulled you in, leave a comment with your theory. With the Kruger Millions legend hiding real treasure, covering up a crime, or feeding an obsession? You've been watching Bernette's Bizarre But True Tales. I'm Bernette, and this was the Kruger Millions case. Part missing treasure, part murder file, part horror story that refuses to stay buried. Drop your final verdict below. Treasure, murder, cover-up, wartime, accounting, mystery, or something stranger? You tell me. Before you go, subscribe for more bizarre but true tales from the edge of history. Next time, I'll open another strange file. Until then, keep your lantern close. Trust the evidence more than the whisper. And remember, not every treasure wants to be found. Some treasures prefer witnesses. And before the screen goes dark, hit subscribe and turn on notifications now, because the next bizarre but true tale may be harder to explain. If this case made you question what was buried, what was hidden, and what people were willing to kill for, like the video and share it with someone who would follow the map despite every warning. Then drop your final verdict in the comments before you leave. Hidden gold, murder cover-up, wartime accounting mystery, or legend that learned how to hunt. And if you hear a coin drop after the video ends, don't look behind you.